Pay attention to the woman jogging down this quiet suburban street. Her name is Emily Carter, 27 years old. Every morning, she runs this same route. At 7:29 a.m., she leaves her apartment for what should have been a normal day. But this footage will become the last known record of her life. The man standing by the fence doesn't move as she passes. He waits. He turns his head, and 40 minutes later, Emily Carter disappears. Her phone was found face down in the grass, 1 kilometer away. The man in this footage has never been identified. Emily Carter, 27, a project coordinator for a small tech company outside Seattle. She lived alone in a second-floor apartment on a quiet street. Saturdays meant groceries, Sundays, calls to her mother. Neighbors remembered her as polite and calm, always smiling, never in a rush. But every morning was the same routine. Coffee at 7 Ow, headphones on, a rundown Pineview street. To her, running was a form of meditation, a way to clear the mind, she once texted a friend. In the weeks before her disappearance, she seemed tired. Co-workers noticed she'd been leaving early, erasing messages from her phone. No one knew why. That morning she woke up at 6:50, checked the weather app, and typed a note. Run before meeting. Clear mind. 40 minutes later, she was gone. Cedar Hills, a quiet town 20 miles east of Seattle. Rows of identical houses, trimmed lawns, matching mailboxes. People greet each other out of habit, not warmth. Nothing ever happens here, until it does. The last police report came 3 months ago. A stolen bicycle. Streetlights flicker. Half the cameras on Main Street haven't worked in years. Mornings follow the same rhythm. School buses, coffee runs, short traffic lines. A small town, moving in circles, unaware that one of its own is already gone. That day, no one noticed anything strange. No screams, no noise, just one missing face among hundreds of ordinary ones. In the community chat, people talk about grocery sales and a missing orange cat. The mailman drops parcels by doors. Neighbors move them to keep them dry. Security cameras gather dust. Their archives unopened for weeks. On the surface, Cedar Hills looked peaceful, but somewhere in those quiet streets, someone was already hiding the truth. 2 days after Emily's disappearance, investigators began collecting footage from neighborhood cameras. Most clips were useless. Grainy, empty streets, interference from rain. But one camera, mounted on the corner of 214 Pineview, captured something that changed the case. At 7:28 a.m., a man appears in frame, his face partially hidden by a cap, hands in his pockets, minimal movement. He stands near a fence across the street and remains there for nearly 3 minutes before the recording cuts off. No one in the neighborhood recognized him. He wasn't listed among delivery staff, local residents, or prior police reports. Detectives gave him a temporary name, the Fence Man. He was the first and only person confirmed near Emily Carter's route on the morning she vanished. After releasing the image of the Fence Man, police received dozens of false leads. Neighbors, delivery workers, people who vaguely resembled him. The real break came 3 days later, when analysts discovered a second clip from a roadside camera mounted on a streetlight roughly 2 blocks from Pineview. The footage, timestamped 07:29 a.m., shows a dark sedan parked at the curb with its lights dimly glowing. 1 minute later, the vehicle slowly pulls away, driving in the same direction where Emily Carter's phone last pinged a tower. The resolution is poor, the license plate unreadable, but the driver's build matches the unidentified man from the earlier footage. The car wasn't registered to anyone in Cedar Hills. A week later, a partial match surfaced. A similar model owned by a man from a nearby county, deregistered 2 months before Emily vanished. Investigators suspected the car had changed hands off record, a purchase meant to erase its trail. For the first time, they had a direction and a moving shadow to follow. The official missing person report for Emily Carter was filed with Cedar Hills Police on the same evening she failed to come home. At 7:42 p.m., her mother called dispatch, saying her daughter hadn't answered since noon. "This isn't like her," she repeated 3 times. At first, it was logged as a possible voluntary disappearance. 27, independent, work stress. Maybe she just needed time. By Monday morning, that theory collapsed. Her phone stopped transmitting at 7:32 a.m., 4 minutes after the last confirmed sighting. It was found 3 days later beside a roadside ditch, face down, SIM card missing. The device showed scratches consistent with being thrown from a moving vehicle. Friends said Emily had been distant, deleting conversations and leaving early from work. Her phone contained no recent texts. Her laptop showed manual file deletions and an emptied recycle bin. CCTV logs revealed her reflection in a storefront window just 2 minutes before her phone went dark. By Tuesday evening, the case hit local news. Young woman fails to return from morning jog. Neighbors started posting routes. Volunteers formed search groups. And on the Pine View School bulletin board, someone pinned the first flyer, a black and white portrait reading, "Find Emily." By Thursday night, police confirmed what everyone feared. This wasn't a disappearance by choice. The phone, the missing SIM, the unregistered car. Someone had known exactly where she'd be that morning. 2 weeks after Emily Carter vanished, the search effort was winding down when a volunteer reported an abandoned vehicle in an industrial zone outside King County, a stretch of warehouses where no one goes after dark. A dark sedan sat against a concrete wall, headlights off, plates removed, doors unlocked. Dust covered the dashboard, but the engine was still warm. At first, police thought it was coincidence, but comparison of the car's body shape and bumper dents confirmed it matched the one seen on camera at 7:29 a.m. Forensic units arrived an hour later. The interior was spotless, no documents, no prints, no hair. But in the trunk, investigators found faint traces of soil, small fibers, and 3 long strands of hair caught in the seal. DNA results later confirmed a match to Emily Carter. Beneath the trunk mat lay a thin layer of pale gray sand, unlike anything in Cedar Hills. Lab tests traced it to one specific area, a disused quarry 40 kilometers north, abandoned nearly a decade ago. The car was towed to the police lot. Detectives searched the area. No cameras, no witnesses, only tire marks fading into the road. That night, the case officially shifted from missing person to criminal investigation. Emily Carter was no longer missing. She was taken. The suspect was identified 3 days after the car was found. Analysts compared hundreds of cell tower connections and located a device that moved within the same sector as Emily's phone during the critical time window. The owner was Daniel Ross, 34, a technician with no record, renting a room 3 kilometers from the lot where the sedan had been left. Officers brought him to the station in the afternoon. At intake, he did not ask what he was accused of and voluntarily agreed to speak. In the interview room, Ross sat upright, kept his hands on the table, and answered indifferently, as if the subject were a broken elevator, not a person. When the investigator placed the tower timing printout in front of him, Ross said that morning he had been walking where the signal is better, and then his phone died. Asked why his device powered off the same minute Emily's did, he repeated the battery explanation and added that he often saves charge. When asked to describe his route, he named 3 streets. None matched what the cameras actually recorded. He was shown a street camera still, black cap, dark jacket, similar build. Ross looked at the image and said that it's hard to say anything from a photo. When the investigator asked whether he knew Emily Carter, the suspect replied, no, even though her name had not been mentioned in the interview up to that point. This was noted in the report as a self-disclosure of information. The psychologist observing the session recorded an atypical response. During direct questions about the car, Ross reduced his breathing rate and avoided eye contact, fixing his gaze on a single spot on the wall. He did not display signs of panic and did not ask what specifically interested him in the case materials. No identifiable fingerprints were found in the sedan's cabin. Smudged glove marks were observed on the trunk lid. Police also lacked a definitive frame showing Ross driving the vehicle. After 8 hours, Ross requested an attorney and declined to continue. He was released the next morning on a promise to appear. The case file added the note, insufficient grounds for detention. 6 days later, the landlord reported that Ross had abruptly moved out, leaving the keys in the mailbox. He provided no new address, banking activity ceased, and his phone never reappeared on the city's network. Officially, he is not wanted. In practice, he has disappeared. The suspect replied, no, even though her name had not been mentioned in the interview up to that point. This was noted in the report as a self-disclosure of information. The psychologist observing the session recorded an atypical response. During direct questions about the car, Ross reduced his breathing rate and avoided eye contact, fixing his gaze on a single spot on the wall. He did not display signs of panic and did not ask what specifically interested him in the case materials. No identifiable fingerprints were found in the sedan's cabin. Smudged glove marks were observed on the trunk lid. Police also lacked a definitive frame showing Ross driving the vehicle. After 8 hours, Ross requested an attorney and declined to continue. He was released the next morning on a promise to appear. The case file added the note, insufficient grounds for detention. 6 days later, the landlord reported that Ross had abruptly moved out, leaving the keys in the mailbox. He provided no new address, banking activity ceased, and his phone never reappeared on the city's network. Officially, he is not wanted. In practice, he has disappeared. When the investigative team assembled every available recording within a 5-kilometer radius, they produced an almost continuous map of the morning's movements. Lobby, intersection, and storefront cameras captured the same anchors: time, weather, and the occasional passerby. After 0728, however, the chronology began to fracture. One intersection clock ran 22 seconds fast. The neighboring camera lagged by nearly a minute. These discrepancies cost the team the most important element: the exact moment of disappearance. Experts synchronized timestamps using headlight flashes and the sound of a passing bus. Even then, a gap remained between 0729 and 0736, a window into which no frame containing her appeared. At 0732, her phone stopped transmitting. Carrier logs showed an abrupt cutoff with no goodbye packet, typical of a forced shutdown or SIM removal. In parallel, digital analysts found 2 anonymous devices that activated in the same sector 7 minutes before the cutoff. Both operated for less than 5 minutes, emitted minimal metadata, and vanished from the network. Their IMIs did not appear in local sales, and the numbers were tied to prepaid bundles purchased in another county 2 weeks earlier. Roadway cameras confirmed one more detail: the dark sedan had been parked on Pineview well before 0720, which meant the driver arrived early and was not selecting a target at random. The same zone also captured 2 garbage trucks and a school bus. Their onboard recorders were checked first and showed nothing but an empty street and ambient noise. Thus, the case file adopted a new term: the missing minutes. A narrow interval where the severed signal, desynchronized or disabled cameras, and brief activity from unknown phones converged. Everything before it can be verified. Everything inside it is, for now, only probabilities. Investigators believe the key event occurred there, the point at which the thread stopped pulling forward. A soil match narrowed the search to an abandoned quarry 40 kilometers north. Overnight, access was closed. Rangers unlocked a service gate, and the team grid searched the pines. K9 units took scent from trunk fibers. The dogs pulled off the spur road toward a rocky ridge. The thermal drone showed nothing useful, only small animal signatures. On the dirt track, however, investigators found tire impressions. The right tread left a torn inner edge, the same defect visible on footage of the dark sedan. Nearby lay a scrap of gray synthetic thread. The lab later matched it to the fibers from the trunk. At a dry creek bed, a dog alerted again. In the brush, they recovered a rubber ear tip from a wireless earbud and a plastic zip tie abraded on stone. A rain-softened palm smear on a boulder could not be lifted. Beyond that point, the ruts fanned out and the trail dissolved. By dawn, there were no fresh digs, no obvious hides, no cameras. One detail stood out. At an old Sector 5 sign, someone had recently replaced a padlock. Tool marks scarred the shackle, and on the beam, they found dust of the same pale gray sand from the car's trunk. The area was flagged as priority. Investigators believed the thread still held here, and then broke. The only hope left was a witness who remembered the quarry road, or a camera no one yet knew existed. Officially, the case remains open. The quarry was searched again. No new evidence surfaced. 9 days after the sweep, the analytics unit received one more clip. A transit bus dashcam recorded at 06:41 a.m., northbound from Sector 5. A man in a dark jacket and black cap walks the shoulder, carrying a plastic bag. His face stays out of focus, but height and gait align with the fenceman profile. The frame was enhanced, stabilized, and proportion checked. It is a statistical similarity, not proof. There are no cameras farther along that route. Where the bus turns off toward the depot, the sequence ends. Cellular activity in that corridor at that hour was zero. There were no banking traces. Another thread appears, then vanishes. Emily's family continues to search. New flyers go up. Volunteers maintain an interactive tip map. On the Pineview School Board, the same black and white photo still hangs, the paper now fading. In the quarterly summary, the final line reads, "Victim's location undetermined. Male subject unconfirmed. Targeted surveillance hypothesis prioritized." And near the street where it began, an aging pole camera keeps blinking, recording an empty road in case someone ever chooses that route again.